Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver. It's a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. It's 2025. Happy New Year to you all. We made it. And I hope that all of you all had a restful and a joyous holiday season. You're ready to get swinging. What is the saying now? Ready to thrive in 2025? Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I know that anytime we start a new year, we make statements like, oh, I need to get my life together. I need to get back on track. Which honestly, for a lot of us, just means that we're going to keep doing the same things that we were doing previously, and that we have not been able to get out of this pattern of self sabotage where we want to have these results, but we keep doing things that actually take us away from the results. So, here in January, we are going to be focusing on strategies that save us from sabotage because we are going to leave sabotage in 2024. We're not going to carry it with us. And so, I know a lot of times during January, we start talking about goals and what interferes with us reaching our goals. And I think that, I think you all probably have been in this situation at some point in your life, but it struck me how important sleep is to actually being able to achieve what it is that you've set as your goals. And I know you're thinking, what? Okay, you tripping. What are you talking about? When I tell you that sleep is a superpower, and that oftentimes when we are looking at the things we struggle the most with, like, oh, why am I so tired? I don't have energy. I'm not motivated to get things done. I have a hard time focusing. I start things and I don't finish them. Like, why am I continuing to have these same interpersonal problems and issues in relationships that I had before? Why am I having these health concerns? Why is my depression worse? Why is my anxiety through the roof? Why am I forgetful? A lot of us are thinking, okay, do I need to be out here getting on some Aricept or something? Like, what is going on with my memory? Why do I feel like it is like I'm processing slower. I'm not retaining things. I am taking longer to get things done. Why can't I knock this weight off of me? I've been doing the same things. I haven't changed, but why am I having a harder time being able to lose weight? Why is my appearance changing? Like, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, wait a minute, was that there before? Like, is that a dark circle? What's going on? Why am I looking so much older? Or why am I looking heavy or weighed down? Why am I getting colds? I just got over a cold last week. Why I keep getting these colds? Why do I feel like there are so many things going on with my health system right now and I just can't shake it? Like, I get over one thing and here another one comes. Like, I'm getting these recurrent things over and over again. Like, why does my neck so tense and my shoulders and my back? Like, I just feel like I'm having a harder time being able to let go of stress. I'm picking up these bad habits that I had put down a long time ago, that these were 3, 4 years ago worth of goals that I had already mastered and prepared for and fasted and gave up during the Lenten season. Like, why am I returning back to these things that I know are not helpful to me and frankly are destructive? Why is my blood pressure higher? I haven't had problems with my blood pressure. Why all of a sudden is it so much harder for my blood pressure to get down? Or why now am I pre-diabetic? I'm hearing a lot of people talk about pre-diabetes. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about risk factors for cardiac issues, people having uh, minor strokes, people having problems with palpitations and issues with their heart health. Well, it possibly could be because you're not getting enough rest. Now, I am not even joking when I tell you that sleep is an essential part of your life. And I know a lot of us have, at various points in our lives, stayed up all night. You might have brought in the new year this year on just a couple of hours of sleep and did a whirlwind. I know we do turn and burns, we drive places, go do what we got to do, and drive right back. I know a lot of you are burning the candle at both ends, as they say, and so you may be working multiple jobs. You may be trying to go to school and work. You may have young children. You might be caregiving. There are a lot of reasons why. It might be sleep apnea. There might be difficulty with congestion, like snoring, these things that can interfere with us sleeping. You might have a third shift job, and then you got a second shift job, or you might have a first shift job and a third shift. So it throws off your sleep cycle. But I do want to talk to you all today about how sleep might be sabotaging or contributing to you sabotaging your goals. And it can be as little as an hour and a half. And I know you all have done like I have done, and you have hit that snooze, and we think that extra 20, 30 minutes is going to make a difference. But truth be told, you not getting an hour and a half of sleep can impact how you feel. And when we talk about the cognitive issues, why you're having problems being alert, why you trying to drink that coffee, why you trying to do that 8 hour energy drink, why you drinking that Red Bull. A lot of you all are truck drivers and you are trying to utilize all of these things to stop the road from lulling you to sleep, or you stand on the phone with people during your whole ride to try to keep yourself alert, but you are finding yourself easily agitated and more moody, and you're wondering like, oh, why am I snapping on people? Like, ugh, I was thinking that, but I didn't mean to say it. And you find yourself just being a little snarky, just having a little bit of edge to you when you're talking to people, and it's giving people pause and they're looking. You might get that warning look like, okay, you got one more time to talk to me like that. Or you may have a partner who is telling you, like, why are you talking to me like that? Where is this coming from? This is not behavior that you typically engaged in. And what we've realized is that we're doing all of these things to compensate. And we're in this season where I really want you all to not be so symptom focused, but to truly understand what is guiding whatever it is I'm experiencing, what's underneath it, like what is the cause, so that I can actually treat and address the issue instead of trying to cover it up, right? So this is what we do with our vaping, and this is what we do with smoking marijuana. A lot of people are using marijuana as their primary coping mechanism. That we're doing with these high sugar, high caffeinated beverages, because we're trying to mitigate the impact of not getting enough rest. But I will tell you that your body can only take so many hits before you're going to start experiencing some long term significant consequences. You all have been up late, you came from the club or spending time with your significant other. You know you were tired. What did you do? You let the window down, because why? Their vision started getting really blurry. You started seeing lights coming together. You couldn't tell what was going on. And our reaction time is slower, right? That's one of the most dangerous times for us to be driving, is when we're sleep deprived. That's why there are certain things in place about how many hours of a trucker must rest and not be driving before they can get on the road again, or at least they should be if you all are working for companies that are looking out for your best interests. But even as you have maybe gotten with your buddies and y'all took a spring break trip or holiday trip, and you're supposed to be sharing the time on the road, but everybody sleep. They hungover or stayed up late having a good time, and you're the one on the road and you're driving 6, 8 hours to try to get you all back, and you're not getting any help. And so you find that road starts kind of running together. It kind of lulls you to sleep, and then you'll hear that because you have run over to the side of the road and you've hit that little groovy part of the road that lets you know, like, hey, wake up. Or your car is saying, hey, do you need a break? Because we're noticing that you're veering. When we get into deep sleep, it allows us to be able to get rid of toxins. There are toxins that accumulate all throughout your day. When you're awake doing all of the wonderful things that you're doing every day, you need to be able to shed those things. And this is why sometimes, unfortunately, people are at higher risk for Alzheimer's disease and other kind of cognitive disorders because we are not getting enough brain health, truth be told, because we're not getting enough sleep. Now, I will tell you that everybody's a little different in terms of how much sleep they have. And I know for some of you that are veterans, for some of you, again, you may have a shift disorder because you worked overnight and you just may not be able to get but 3, 4 hours of sleep. And that's kind of your norm. But honestly, it takes about 7 to 8 hours and sometimes more, depending on what you have going on, for you to be able to recover. This is why sometimes it takes us longer to be able to heal after a surgery, after a procedure. You're thinking to yourself, like, why is it taking me so much longer to get over this cold? Because I haven't actually rested. Like, take a day and actually rest. And some of us have a hard time being able to separate out being restful and taking care of yourself with being lazy. And so we think if I'm laying around that I'm being lazy, not recognizing the importance of sleep in our bodies, in our lives, our mental, our physical, our decision making. So when you have sleep deprivation, and I know you all have seen yourselves in the mirror, and you're looking at your eyes and you're like, oh, right. So it might be red, might be puffy. You see the dark circles. And what ends up happening is sometimes we look like we're almost like we're pale, like we're some people say peaked, because you just don't look like you feel good. And what we know is that cortisol, I've talked to you all about cortisol before, right? That's that stress hormone in our body. And whenever we don't allow ourselves to rest and be able to take care of ourselves, then that's more cortisol that's in our body. You know what cortisol does? It breaks down collagen. You know what collagen does? It allows that skin to look really smooth and healthy. And so you start seeing people with more wrinkles. And I know some of you are hitting that time where you're at your 10, 20, 30, 40 plus year reunions, and you're noticing how some people look really different. Like, why do some people look almost as good as they looked in high school? They look healthier. Some people look better than they did when they were in high school. What do the lyrics say? I didn't peak in high school. I'm still out here getting cuter. And then you see other people that look like they've had a hard life. And so there are a lot of things that will wear on us. And when you are not taking care of yourself, you're overworking, you're stressed, you're not getting enough rest, your immune system is going to take a hit and your body is going to reflect that your immune system is not functioning like it should, right? And then that's why we got viruses that are coming up. But also, whenever you're sleeping, you produce proteins that allow your immune system to be able to recharge. It allows you to be able to create more white blood cells, right? And that's what allows us to be able to have a healthier immune system. And so we wonder why, like, oh, why are my white blood cell count lower? I know an infection is coming. And that may be because you never really got rid of an infection in your body. Like, sometimes it's not that I got sick back to back. Sometimes it's that I never really fully healed. Because I know all of y'all are not taking the full medication like the doctor prescribes. I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to you. All right, there may also be days where consecutively you're not getting enough sleep. Like, so sometimes we'll have like, oh, this was a long day. The next day I rest, I take some time. I'm talking about when it becomes a chronic pattern for us to go days of not getting enough sleep. And then now my immune system is going to be struggling to fight against even more things other than viruses, right? And then that's when we're at risk for that diabetes. That's when we're at risk for those cardiac issues. That is when we're in treatment for cancer, while we're in treatment for we might have a thyroid condition, right? And so again, that impact of that cortisol, the impact of us not being able to get even the connection between our levels of hunger are affected by cortisol in our body. So when you don't get enough sleep, then you're more hungry. And so you have probably found that the longer you stay up, the more you eat. right? Because your body's like, hey, we need to be eating. My stomach feels empty because I'm having increased hormone levels in my stomach that are communicating to me like, hey, like go get you a snack, right? And we munching, and what we're gonna munch on? We're gonna munch on junk. So a lot of times while we're not reaching that weight goal, while we're not reaching that goal of being able to eat healthier, it's because I'm not getting enough rest. And so my body is telling me I'm hungry more. And because what ends up happening is there is body fat, right? Which is released in our bodies. It helps our bodies be able to maintain a normal weight. So this is why we can go and eat on that cruise for a week and only gain a couple of pounds. We come back, lose it right again. But what happens is when I'm not getting enough rest, now I'm storing that fat and I'm not able to maintain that same weight because now I get a new set point. And that new set point is based on that increased level of eating, those increased calories, increased fat, because of course, again, I'm not eating healthy. Like when's the last time you were up at 12 o'clock at midnight eating celery? Not happening, right? And so what ends up happening for us is now I've got more of the stress hormone. My body's like, hey, we got to be able to manage the stress level, so we need this fuel. And so what we end up recognizing is that if you're struggling to lose weight, it may be because you have a lack of sleep. And also, only a lack of sleep, but also that you're not getting into that deep sleep. Like sometimes people are like, I sleep, but it feels like that twilight sleep where I'm kind of still awake and I can hear everything. So if you're sleeping and you're not getting good quality sleep, that can have the same effect. And sometimes we can't tell if we're stressed because we're not sleeping or we're not sleeping because we're stressed. And so, unfortunately for us, again, and there's that cortisol, right? Because now, in addition to weight gain and heart disease, now, as the seasoned saints say, my nerves are bad. The anxiety is there because what happens when you're up? That mind is going, it's racing. The longer you're up, the more you just add to whatever those thoughts are. And they're usually not positive thoughts. And then what we love to do is doom scroll and then get on there. And so now I'm just increasing it because now I'm creating all kinds of narratives on here looking at these social media posts that people are, I feel like, living lives that I want to live, or all my doubts and why didn't I reach that, and oh, that should have been my house, and why didn't I get married this year, and why isn't my child a golden child like their child is. All of the things that we end up doing, engaging in these comparison behaviors. You know, the other thing that happens when you're up late and scrolling, or if you work at night and you're scrolling during the day, there are ads that show up, right? So they're paying attention to your patterns. You all know these phones are listening. That's why Apple might be giving y'all a good old check for Siri ear hustling on your conversations. Is these ads pop up, and what are these ads about? These ads are usually going to um, tailor to something that you have either an insecurity with or a struggle with. So if you're a shopper like me, what are those ads going to be? They're going to be shopping ads, shoes and purses and dresses and all of the stuff that we're leaving behind in 2024 for all of you that got a shopping addiction. So what else pops up? Food, because some of you are foodies and you love those videos where they're talking about that on yon. So these are the kind of things that end up interfering with your ability to be able to again meet those goals, because now I'm seeing things that are what taking away from my goal instead of adding to them. I do also want to talk about the impact of unhealthy lifestyles. Usually, right, these things go together. So I'm not getting sleep. I tend to have higher levels of hypertension. I tend to be overweight. My blood pressure is high, hence the hypertension, right? Then that may lead to the sleep apnea because I'm overweight, got all this pressure on my chest, or I have a higher incidence of sleep disorders, which then are going to affect my heart. You see this cycle that we're on. Guess what? Obesity also affects diabetes. Diabetes puts that pressure on the heart. So we see that sleep isn't just about not being able to rest, but sleep is also about you being able to make sure that you're giving your body a fighting chance to be able to help you, because your risk factors are going to go up. So if for those of you that have hit 30s, you know your 30s look different than your 20s. For those of you who have hit the 40s, you know your 40s look different than your 30s. And the 50s look different than the 40s. So every 10 years, then you have the potential for weight gain. You have the potential to decrease muscle mass. You have the potential to be less flexible. You have the potential to have other factors that you're dealing with, right? Now, so now I'm having problems with my vision. So all of these things can go together. And if I'm not handling them and they're compounding with this lack of sleep, then my risk factors just keep going up and up and up. The body just has to have restoration. A lot of people struggle with being able to have self care because, again, they think that's selfish. Oh, there's so much I could be doing instead of me being here. But guess what? If I'm not resting, I'm not dealing with that inflammation that I have in my body, right? I'm not dealing with that. I'm already going to have hormone or be prone to hormonal issues as I age anyway. So, what's going to happen when I don't get sleep is going to affect my thyroid and other hormones. Also, we want to talk about like how sleep deprivation affects kids. Because I know some of you are not really caring as much about like what time your kids go to bed. You're like, whatever time they go to bed, whatever time they wake up, we've got the flexibility in our schedule. I want them to wake up naturally. However, what ends up happening is most of the time, kids are not going to get an adequate enough amount of rest if you don't put the types of behavioral things in place that are going to allow them to. Developmentally, a kid will be up all night scrolling. If you let them kids be up, they will be on those handheld devices. They will be watching TV. Some of them will be playing. If you take the electronics away, they'll play with the Legos. Just anything to you. Seen kids fight sleep. I mean, they are fighting and they're mean and they're ornery and they're throwing tantrums and oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I'm hungry. And you realize that that pattern of behavior, which is that lack of them being able to get sleep and them building a foundation for not getting adequate rest, then start showing up in behavior problems in school, start showing up in behavior problems at that daycare. It starts showing up in problems with them being able to learn, to attend, to focus, to concentrate. Then they don't have the energy. They're tired. They're falling asleep in class. So now their school performance is suffering. Their reaction time is slower. They're more moody and irritable. And yeah, same risk factors for us. So now what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to eat. And then what are you going to want to eat? You're going to want to eat junk. So now I am, when I was growing up, we used to have these little hugs, these little fruit drinks. Absolutely certain. If there was any vitamin C in there, it was probably less than 1%. That and flaming Cheetos or Doritos or right, all of these things that don't have a lot of nutritious value, have a lot of dye in them, which then also contributes to the executive functioning issues. We know our kids' brains don't fully develop until they're into adulthood in those 20s. And so for this foundation of I'm not getting enough rest, I'm not eating healthy because most kids, if you let them choose, they're going to eat the things that are really processed. And we know about that. What? Weight gain, all of the stuff, cardiovascular issues, diabetes. And this is why we're seeing kids have much more weight on them. They're less active because, you know, kids aren't getting out and playing as much as they did when I was a kid. You went outside and played. But now kids are on games, they're in houses. People want their kids to be safe. I don't feel them safe being outside, too many predators. And so I'm also not getting exercise in addition to me not getting this sleep, right? So the cycle. How much sleep do you need? I know a lot of people ask me this. And truthfully, that I will say the short answer is it varies. Um, Most of the time we're probably not getting enough sleep. Like I would feel comfortable saying that most of the time we're sleep deprived on some level. There are the American Pediatric Academy, the American Psychological Association. There are a lot of organizations that talk about that probably somewhere around 30% of us are not getting 7 hours of sleep a night. And you know, kids need more sleep than we do as adults. Okay, so let me get into it. Y'all like, how do I know that? Okay, so let's just kind of put this, because I do feel like quantifying things helps. Your infant, your little baby, the cute ones, when you want to smell them and like touch their cute little feet and their little hands. They need about 12 to 15 hours, right? So, what do you see most babies doing? Those infants are eating and they're sleeping. Why? Because they're growing. That is when a lot of their neural development takes place. And they're getting that what we call plasticity in that brain, right? All those good creases in there that are going to allow them to be able to think and have good emotional control and be able to manage their behaviors, right? So 12 to 15 hours, they're spending the majority of their time in that process of sleeping and waking. And then they're going to give you a good poopy diaper too, right? Toddlers, as they get to be about 1 or 2, still honestly need around that. 11 to 14 is the recommendation for the amount of sleep that they need. As our preschool kids, which is our 3 to 5 year olds, they still need 10 to 13 hours. Our school age children, which is your 6 to 13 year olds, 9 to 11 hours. Teenagers, 14 to 17, 8 to 10 hours. So, as you can see, no matter where you are in this learning position of academics from K through 12, you still are on the average going to need about 10 hours of sleep. And how many of you definitely know for certain your kids aren't getting that sleep? They might be up late. They might be doing homework. It may be that they have a bunch of activities that they're involved in. Y'all are getting home late, eating dinner late. They got to shower, get into bed. And so they're not getting that much sleep during the weekdays. And what happens? They end up crashing by the end of the week. You're seeing the results of that behavior. It may be them being more moody. They may be nodding and falling asleep. And also that they're having difficulty being able to get things done. The young adults, the 18 to 25-year olds, when y'all are at that club age, 7 to 9 hours. And I know that for a lot of us, we definitely were not getting the 7 to 9 hours of sleep during that time. Worked in a couple of jobs, might have been in school, taking care of different responsibilities. You were functioning on less sleep and then you crash. And no, you cannot make up sleep. Once it's gone, it's gone. Adults 26 to 64, so where probably the majority of you all fall who are listening to this podcast, we still need about 7 to 9 hours. And I know that people have problems sleeping, they have problems being able to have quality sleep. I know a lot of you are getting up and going to the bathroom, as my child says, as women in our small bladders. But also, like as you are taking different types of medication, you might be on a diuretic because you have that high blood pressure. So that's causing you to get up and go to the bathroom. You may be sensitive to sound. Some of you are veterans, and noise affects you. Some of you are caregivers in this age group. So you may have aging parents you're caring for. So you got to get up with them during the night. You may be in a neighborhood where there are loud cars or vehicles, and so as people come in, you hear it. You're hearing when garages come up because we're just a little sensitive to sound. So a lot of times we're not getting adequate rest. Now, some of you are able to nap, but some of you are not nappers. And so what happens again when I don't get that sleep? In our 65+ year olds, 7 to 8 hours as well. And what we realize about them is they're sleeping less. Now, what they'll do is they'll go to bed early, they'll wake up early, and they might try to get a nap in there to try to navigate that differently. And some people do not sleep well at night. Their anxiety is just very high. They sleep better during the day. So, however you're getting that sleep, then it depends on what that looks like for you, but you need to be getting it. But on average, 7 hours as adults is what we want to aim for. So, how do I fix it? How do I address it? How do I stop this from being something that sabotages me or I allow it to be able to be a higher risk factor for me? Most of the time, we don't have good sleep hygiene. Now, I know y'all are going to be upset at me about this, but I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you all. You're on your phones. You're on your phones in your beds. You are using your phone, your beds for your snack table. You are using your phone for your office. You are using your phone to be able to read. You are using your phone to be having conversations up late with people. And so those habits are not allowing you to be able to have productive sleep patterns. And people will say, oh, I just stay on my phone until I fall asleep. No, what your phone is doing is keeping you up because it's constantly lights and things engaging you, and you're going in and out of these stories and um, scrolling. That's actually not what you need to be doing at nighttime. At nighttime, you need to do what I encourage you to do with your kids, which there needs to be a cutoff for your electronics. And that needs to be preferably at least an hour before bed. If you're having problems sleeping, now, if you're able to hit that pillow and go straight to sleep, then by all means set you a bedtime that's going to allow you to get that adequate amount of rest you need and go from there. But if you're a person that has difficulty being able to get to sleep, then I definitely encourage you to look at what behaviors you have that may be reinforcing you not sleeping. So when you are trying to create new sleep patterns, you need to use your bed just for sleep, and your other pleasurable activities that you have. But for certain, you need to use it for sleep. So when you're not getting ready to sleep, you're not trying to initiate sleep, you don't need to be in your bed. Get up and watch TV. A lot of people have removed TVs from their room for this very reason, so they don't end up having these risk factors as things that could potentially interfere. How many times have you gotten caught up in that movie, and next thing you know, it's 4 hours later, you were binge watching a series because you're going to be invested and interested. You need boring, mundane activities when you're trying to get ready for bed. Read that manual to that vacuum cleaner that you've never read. Listen to a nice podcast that causes you to initiate sleep. There may be there's some good auditory books that are literally just, the one, those kind of voices, right? Because that's very soothing. And so next thing you know, you've drifted off. But don't have bright lights with you when you're trying to sleep, right? You want a dark, cool room. Some of y'all are sleeping, it's too hot. And so you're waking up because you're hot, you're sweating. I know a lot of people are in perimenopause, menopause, struggling as women. I know some of us, because of our weight, we end up generating a lot of heat, and so we're sweating at night. Sometimes it's important for you to be able to have that fan on in your room. You may need a humidifier in your room if you have problems with congestion. You may be the type of person that needs to have some can get your words together, girl. Instrumental music played in the background, because like you can't have on your crunkest hits trying to go to sleep, because that's going to keep you alert. Remember, we want to lull you. We want to get that activity level to a point where it's very low and slow. It's also really helpful to do yoga or meditation before bed. Journaling before bed can really help. Set you a timer. My phone goes off at 8:30 on the weekdays. People know, don't call me after 8 o'clock on a weekday. Whatever you need can wait until the next day for business hours. Because again, once you have that pattern, then you want to protect that. There are going to be nights where you're up late. You might have a meeting late. You might have an event you're going to that's late, and that's okay. But again, you don't want to have that be a consecutive pattern. And you'll start to notice those headaches. I know you all have been there before, where your body is just like, I am so tired. And you can get to a point where you're so tired that you're almost agitated and you can't sleep. Right. And so being able to soothe yourself, lavender baths, for those of you that can tolerate that. There are definitely some sprays you can spray that allow you to be able to initiate sleep. I wouldn't recommend any caffeine. I know some of y'all, caffeine has the opposite effect on you, and it sedates you. So if you're the type of person that can drink coffee and it puts you to sleep, by all means. But most of us, the caffeine is going to cause us to be alert, and that's going to interfere with your sleep. So you want to be mindful about, especially if you're on stimulant medication, or you're a coffee drinker, you're a tea drinker, or you like sodas, which also this is a good time to be able to let some of those things go and replace them with some lovely water. Warm beverages before bed can be really helpful. Being able to just kind of talk and get things out, decompress, right? We talked about washing away the day, where you wash that away with your shower, or your body is sleeping, it washes away some of those toxins, but also being able to just wash that away by letting it go. So physical activity, actually even an hour or two before bed, can help with people being able to initiate sleep. But whatever your sleep pattern is, you want to be consistent. So a lot of times people have erratic sleep schedules, and so I can't be going to bed at 10 one night, 6 one night, 2 in the morning one night, right? So that's not going to work. My body is not going to know when it's time for me to initiate sleep. So I need to be able to be consistent when I'm thinking about what that's going to look like. I will also tell you all that alcohol, right? So a lot of you are drinking alcohol or you're smoking cigarettes before you go to bed. And even though alcohol is a depressant, what it can still do, right? And we know it allows those inhibitions to be down. Is it can absolutely have the opposite effect and cause you to be more alert. Nicotine is a stimulant, and so those of you smoking before you go to bed, like you're utilizing a stimulant, which what increases that activity instead of slowing it down. So thinking about calming, quiet things that you can do, and even with your kids as you're trying to initiate bed for them, no TV, no electronics. I can read you a story. We can do some quiet activities before bed, but getting them in that space of settling down so that we are teaching our bodies now it's time for us to unwind. Meditation is really great to do before. All right. So it may just be as simple as sleep is the thing that's interfering with you being able to reach those goals. So let's kick the self sabotage behaviors here in 2025 and recognize the importance of sleep and how it literally powers us and we give it its time and its attention. So instead of being well, go to sleep.